Death of all Transformers. What happens at the end of Transformers lore, millions of years later? There are very few universes that have mastered the art of expansive lore and limitless world-building like the Transformers universe. There have been countless tales so far, tales of heroism, betrayal, loyalty, and civil wars that have spread across the cosmos. We have learnt the entire history of Cybertron, from the dawn of the ancient race of Quintessons to the never-ending war of Autobots and Decepticons. Despite the sprawling timelines, the alternate realities, and the unbelievable crossovers, we are yet to know what really happens at the end. Wars are bound to finish, so when the Great War does come to an end, reduced to ashes and dust, what will the universe look like? What happens when Optimus Prime is gone and Megatron is forgotten? Answering those questions and more, we have Transformers: Last Bot Standing, a comic book that acts as a heartbreaking epilogue to the glorious saga of the Cybertronians. Much like the iconic Last Survivor trope in comic books, which usually shows a world-weary warrior outliving the rest of his kind, this miniseries strips away the spectacle and gives us something that is raw and real. It is emotionally resonant and, without any exaggeration, one of the most genuine and beautiful Transformers tales ever told. The story drops us at the end of the universe. The stars have been steadily burning out for a while and the million-year war has ended, but only after consuming most of the galaxy's resources. On the remote planet of Donoct, a Cybertronian is hidden amongst a species yet to see their technological evolution. It explores the consequences of war, survival, and the bitter truth and burden of outliving your kith and kin. This brilliant and atmospheric work was the brainchild of writer and artist Nick Roach and artist E.J. Su. Both artists carry a legendary pedigree within the fandom, as you might recognize Roach from Last Stand of the Wreckers and Sins of the Wreckers, while E.J. Su has been instrumental in defining the visual aesthetic of the IDW Transformers universe with works like Infiltration, Devastation, and Revelation. Here's an interesting piece of trivia that makes this comic book even more interesting. Last Bot Standing also serves as the unofficial ending to the IDW universe, marking the end of an era in more ways than one. After nearly a decade of giving us some of the best Transformers comics, IDW handed over the Transformers comic book license to Hasbro in 2022. Last Bot Standing is necessary reading to those who love Transformers and to any reader who can appreciate deep lore and an uncompromising last chapter. It challenges the very nature of the Autobot crusade and asks whether war can ever be a solution that would bring about peace. When legends turn out to be true. We start on the planet Donoct, with a capsule crash landing on it like a bullet shot from afar. It lands in the midst of a desert. Slowly, the capsule opens up and a Cybertronian trudges out. In the nearby village of Fembrance, two boys, Stambo and Brennet, race around in their new steam engine cars, rising dust in their wake. Shib Walkus, a young girl who runs a delivery business with her two brothers, Trayvon and Beats, stops at Dr. Brel Tonder, the local physician's shop, to give him his goods. Her wagon is pulled by Sparks and Firebolt, two animals that look like horses with horns and a llama-like mane. As she jokes around with them, the cars splash mud onto her, and she retorts by calling Stambo a daddy's little boy in a daddy's little toy. The two boys stop and she tells them that if they worked a little, they would not think getting dirt on oneself is shameful. The boys tell her that they have a job now thanks to their Ramblers. They are now in the delivery business. They tell her that they are faster than her wagons and they don't have to worry about the smell of their engines. All they needed was the fuel being mined in the hills. Shib tries to sound confident as she says that no one in the village would trust them, but before she could complete her sentence, the boys were off, telling her to ask the doctor about their services and let them know if she would reconsider their proposal for a merger. Her brothers, who are unloading stuff from the wagon, ask her if she is okay, but she doesn't let them know her worries. When the doc comes out, Shib confronts him about using someone cheaper and scummier while they had gone out of town on his job. The doctor explains that he had to resort to the Steam Ramblers as Shib was out of town, and the Steam Ramblers are fast and cheap. Shib doesn't believe they could be cheaper than them though, as she only takes enough to feed Sparks, Firebolt, herself, and her brothers. She reminds him that she had not raised their prices since before her parents passed, and now the doctor giving work to the rich boys over them feels like a betrayal. The doctor suggests switching up her vehicle as life is moving quicker and fast services are expected everywhere. Shib doesn't like change though, and it doesn't help that they had begun mining in the hills for fuel. Seeing her worried, the doctor tells her that though he knows she is a credit to her parents, he sometimes wonders what they put in her head, as her family always seemed to be worried. Shib argues that it is normal for her to be stressed, as she had run the business since she was a child, and he doesn't know what it is to fear for one's livelihood, as a doctor is never out of work, especially now since the mining led to a lot of accidents. The doctor tells her that that is the reason he needs things to be quicker now, and pays her. As the siblings leave, he asks Shib not to worry. Meanwhile, in the desert, the blue Cybertronian tries to get across the desert, which seems to be never-ending. That night, Shib asks her brothers if they secured the wagon well. When she doesn't get an answer, she walks out to see them passed out in their beds. Since they had earned their sleep, she walks to her room and rolls up the carpet to reveal a secret safe below. Inside the safe there is some money, old documents, photographs, and a ratty old chest. She opens the chest to reveal 2 energon keys. She removes the one around her neck and returns it to its place beside the 2 keys. Suddenly she hears knocks and rushes out to tell them that she is off duty, but is surprised to find nearly the entire village at her door. The doctor tells her that he brought the alderman there as he knows Shib would help them. A villager tells her that the explosion in the hills while mining had injured many, and they could not bring any of them back home as the blast had taken away all their carts. Shib asks Stambo why he couldn't help them, as earlier that day he had claimed to be the best in the business. The alderman tells her that they used the steam ramblers to get to her faster, as they did not run well on rough terrain. She realizes that they need the best, and the best means her and her wagon. She grabs her coat and hat, asking the villagers not to wake up the boys and wait with some fresh hot food for them and her animals. She heads out with the doctor and tells him that around there, if anyone wanted to rest, they would have to get blown up. What can I say, Shib? When it rains, it pours. While this is going on, the Cybertronian in the desert has remained steadfast in the desert, but he has begun leaking fuel. It doesn't take long for Shib to fill up her wagon with the injured folk, and she rushes home. The villagers help the injured, and Stambo praises her for her work. Shib is still pretty sour about him though, and tells him that they would return to mine more fuel for his fun buggy as soon as they are patched up. She adds a thank you for not stealing more of her business while she was gone. Suddenly the villagers see the Cybertronian approaching and point at it. They are scared of not knowing what that is, thanks to its unique shape, and they think that the stories they used to hear as children have started to come true. Shib asks them all to hurry and move as the Cybertronian gets closer. Suddenly, the bot's blue eyes flicker open, and the villagers, though scared, stop and watch. Shib jumps into action and asks Stambo to load up their ramblers with people. She then orders her brothers to help the injured back onto the cart, but the wagon suddenly detaches from the animals. It begins rumbling loudly and slowly begins transforming, much to the surprise of the Cybertronian and Shib. The newly transformed Cybertronian, a massive orange fella you might know as Rodimus, raises up with the wagon's cloth roof as his cape, and he has only one word for his fellow Cybertronian: die. Rodimus jumps on the blue Cybertronian, who is too full of surprises and questions to fight back. The people of the village are full of questions too, asking Shib if she knew that her wagon was enchanted. Shib's eyes look like they are gonna pop out of her head as she watches everything in shock. Rodimus lands punch after punch while the blue Cybertronian tries in vain to get him to recognize him. Rodimus, who is weak from years of dormancy, topples backward from just one touch by the Cybertronian. The Cybertronian, to his credit, is full of apologies and rushes towards him, requesting to know his name. As he tries to recall his name, flashes of memory make themselves known. A spaceship traveling across the void being attacked by other spaceships. He remembers the first time he set eyes on the planet, his 2 companions, and his decision to make Donnacht his home. The blue Cybertronian tries to get him up as he congratulates him for finding them a home. Meanwhile, the alderman orders some of the villagers to fetch weapons. As the blue Cybertronian lends Rodimus a hand, he grabs it and throws him away, telling him that the place is not for them. Rodimus then steps on him while the blue Cybertronian is still trying to connect. Realizing his life is in danger, the Cybertronian switches gears and begs Rodimus not to kill him as they are kin. Rodimus repeats the same thing once more. He cannot be there. He grabs his upper jaw and pulls the blue Cybertronian's head apart. As blue liquid oozes out of the dead bot, Rodimus tells him that he has no kin and kneels in fatigue. The Alderman orders his Rangers to arm themselves and hold their positions to shoot Rodimus, but Shib intervenes, asking them to stop. As Rodimus gets back on his feet, he asks her if he knows her. Shib replies that he should know her. He gets back up and the Rangers point their guns at him, despite being scared out of their minds. Rodimus looks at them and asks if they want to take the risk after they just saw what happened to the blue guy. The Rangers turn to the Alderman for guidance, and when he looks equally scared, Rodimus walks off into the desert, telling them that they should not follow him if they want to stay safe. Things are about to get even more interesting as another spacecraft lands in the desert just like the blue bots. A pink, rabbit-like transformer climbs out. Last of their kind. As Rodimus examines the capsule, a faint memory of a burning spaceship with the Autobot symbol rushes to his mind, but he can't place it. He realizes the space capsule had to be shot from something, as it did not have any means of control inside. Every part of the capsule was dead except a blinking light. Rodimus notes his observation out loud, with Shib helping him with the words he had trouble finding. The capsule had green droplets of bioorganic fuel, and it is clear to Rodimus that the Cybertron could not have gotten to the planet all on his own. Shib asks him how he came to the planet, and Rodimus reminds her that he already told her not to interrupt him. He then interrupts himself and asks her why the villagers let her follow him. Shib theorizes that the villagers probably think they are in cahoots. Rodimus doesn't understand why she followed him and asks her if she is just there to interrupt his investigation. The wagon had been a part of Shib's family since long before she was born, and her father had warned her that if she met Rodimus, it would probably be because something really bad was happening. So she wanted to know what was going on. Rodimus is not able to help her, as having no fuel and being on standby for so long had affected his neural portal, and his memories were being rewritten, due to which he could not remember common words. Even words he referred to as talkie chunks and chat slices. I might borrow that one, Hot Rod. Rodimus looks to the sky for stars, hoping they would help him in finding out how long he had been on standby. But he is in for a shock, as many stars had ceased to exist. Shib tells him that the sky had started to empty since her grandfather's time and asks him if he knows why that happens. Rodimus tells her that it is because of beings like himself. He had been forged into war and was not someone who could remember a time before it. Their war had been fought over numerous planets and galaxies, and each one of them had been destroyed thanks to their brutal battle. Soon they began to run out of planets to wage war over. While a Cybertronian could be rebuilt, galaxies and planets could not be remade. So when he landed on Donacht and went into hibernation as the last of his kind, he had hoped that would be it. No more wars to fight, no more galaxies to plunder, no more people to be killed in the name of war. But it is now clear to him that that is not true. He asks Shib what she knows, and she tells him that she was told by her parents that if she kept him safe, he would keep her safe when the time would come. Rodimus does not believe that, as it feels like a lot of responsibility, and right now, he can't believe he would be that kind of a guy. Shib insists that her dad told her Rodimus would take care of everybody. Rodimus asks if everybody includes the villagers who had ridden up to them. Shib comments that the townsfolk had caught up to them, and Rodimus tells her that the only difference between townsfolk and a mob is the flaming torches, which the townsfolk were holding. The Alderman addresses Rodimus as strange metal creature and orders him to go with them and be detained till they can figure out if he intends to harm them. Rodimus reminds him that they let him go, but the Alderman tells him that they were just startled and unable to detain him. Rodimus does not think that is the right argument, as they hadn't even tried to detain him. That strikes a nerve, and the Alderman tells him that the townsfolk had heard of tales about his kind and had assumed they were tales meant to frighten children. Now he knows the tales were a warning, and they were right to be afraid. Shib tells him that Rodimus isn't dangerous, but the Alderman had seen him wallop a similar creature cruelly while he did not even attempt to defend himself. Shib insists Rodimus is not dangerous, and this time it is Rodimus who objects. He tells her that forgetting how dangerous he is makes him more of a threat. The Alderman then turns to Shib and, remembering how weird her family was, tells her that she posed a danger to all of Fembrance. The Alderman tells her if she knows even a little bit more than nothing, she would be seen with deep suspicion, and Shib's sheepish face is evidence enough that she did know something. Rodimus tries to speak on her behalf, insisting she did not know who he really is, but the Alderman has no reason to trust him. Rodimus reminds the alderman that he can flatten everyone without breaking a sweat and look cool while doing it, but as a move of good faith, he would accompany them and let them bind him only if Shib is not threatened in any way. The alderman agrees and tells Shib that her brothers are safe in the homestead with a couple of men making sure they don't leave the house. They would be questioned in front of the town council the next morning, but until then, both of them would be kept under strict guard. While this is happening, not too far away, the bunny-like bot monologues about the condition of their kind. He wonders why their ancestors condemned them to a life without dignity while ignoring the calls of his commander, who calls him Officer Spineshucker. The rabbit bot asks him once again to call him Officer Moon, as he no longer goes by Spineshucker. Commander Steeljaw, who resembles a bipedal wolf, tells him that he has the right to go by any name he wants to, just like his crew, which makes up the remainder of their race, has the right to be embarrassed by his existence. He asks for the inspection report, and Moon obliges along with expressing gratitude for choosing him to oversee their landing. Steeljaw, ever the charmer, tells him that there was no selection and they drew lots to assign jobs. Steeljaw's sister, Sub-Commander Sharpclaw, joins them, calling him by his name without the honorific commander in the beginning of his name, much to his annoyance. She tells him that they found Nitro. That's the name of the blue Cybertronian who got his ass handed to him by Rodimus. Steeljaw orders them to collect his data and set up base. Moon asks to join them, but Steeljaw says no, as his alt mode does not have transportation capabilities. When Moon insists, Steeljaw reminds him that he was the one who chose this preposterous body. Moon tells him that his form is a statement, but Steeljaw doesn't like what it's saying. If you ask me, I think it's pretty neat Moon decided to take on the form of a bunny, a prey instead of a predator, as their kind had been responsible for so much death and destruction. Sharpclaw chooses Override and Riot Gear to collect the data Nitro has on local supply, and the sooner they do that, the sooner they would be able to gather enough resources and get everyone back online. Sharpclaw notices that Nitro's life sign is not around his transponder signal. This does not shock Steeljaw, as he assumes Nitro might be disoriented from the mission, as he was running on fumes. He orders Sharpclaw to locate him after they visit the lander site. Two random villagers who had wandered towards Nitro's landing site look in curiosity as Riot Gear and Override speed up to the spot. Scared for their lives, they hide. While changing back to their robot forms, Riot Gear gets stuck midway and Override has to give him a kick to his butt, quite literally, to ease the transformation. Override, hungry for some fuel, sees the leaked biofuel and picks up some of it in her hand. Seeing her nearly drooling, Riot Gear asks what she is doing, but Override asks him to back off as she overranks him. Riot Gear doesn't care, as his keen senses pick up something better. He finds the two villagers hiding behind a rock and picks them up. Override looks up, wiping her mouth, and calls Riot Gear gross for having fuel raw, and Riot Gear tells her to go back to Nitro's sloppy seconds, as he enjoys it this way. That's right folks, the bots have resorted to using humans for fuel, but more on that later. Override tells him that Steeljaw, as their commander, gets first pick, but Riot Gear tells her that they deserve a treat for wasting their time trying to find Nitro. He picks up one of the villagers and asks where the other one like him is. When he points, Riot Gear is delighted and points it out to Override, who is too disgusted by him to stay there any longer. She asks him to hurry it up as she leaves. In Shib's house, she notices the guard by her window fast asleep and takes out the chest to wear the Energon key. One of her brothers wakes up asking for her, and she hides the key in her shirt. Beats is having a hard time sleeping due to the events of the night, and Shib consoles him that they will all be fine as long as they tell the truth. Beats doesn't know anything though, and Shib tells him that that is all he needs to say. After giving him a hug, she asks him to go back to sleep, and he asks her to change from her work clothes so she can sleep comfortably. As soon as Beats heads to bed, Shib climbs out of her window and sneaks past the sleeping guard. As the sun dawns, Rodimus asks the villagers who had tied him down, like that one illustration of Gulliver's Travels, whether they know that the only reason he is still tied up is because he wants to be. A villager tries to answer that with a great deal of stuttering and stumbling over his words, and his fellow villager asks him to shut up if he is gonna sound so darn scared. A loud hum distracts them all, and the villagers turn to see something loud and fast heading towards them. Rodimus, unable to see what is happening from his vantage point, demands to know what is going on. As Override and Riot Gear transform, once again with the help of a kick to the rear from Override, the Rangers take aim. They begin to shoot, intent upon rising hell, but the two bots hardly pay any attention to the bullet rain being showered at them. Shib uses the opportunity to sneak in next to Rodimus. The eyes of the two bots fall on Rodimus and they are overcome with surprise. Rodimus tells Shib that he can't do anything now as he is out of fuel. The Rangers fire faster but still remain as effective as rain on a charging bull. Shib tries to tell him about the Energon key, but Rodimus tells her to run and hide as she has to help herself now. The two bots approach Rodimus emotionally, having seen one of their own in the wild after possibly centuries. Override asks Ridegear not to cry as he cannot spare the extra fluids. Looking at him tied up, they promise to get their revenge on the Nats who did that to them. The two free him and take him to their camp, not listening to Rodimus's objections or repeated questions as to why they are not dead. Override and Riot Gear, though, just assume that he is shocked just like them, and think that it is a good omen that they found him. The Alderman gets news about the two bots taking Rodimus, and he first makes sure if anyone is injured. When there's no major injuries to report, he decides to ask Shib, but that is when the ranger who was guarding her house runs in to say he does not know where she is. The Alderman's suspicions about Shib grow intense, as he had always suspected her family of something, as they were very secretive and lived far away from the good people of the town. He thinks Shib and her family were colluding with the bots, and now they are acting on their plan to steal the fuel from their hills. In the desert, the bots set up base camp, and Steeljaw orders Moon to wake everyone from stasis once they process some fuel. Everyone except the veteran, an old bot who uses less fuel but is annoying and least useful. Steeljaw asks Moon to let him stay offline for now. When Override and Riot Gear arrive with Rodimus, Steeljaw cannot believe it and calls it a miracle that they found Rodimus. Rodimus braces his arms for a fight, deciding that it's time to finish them all. Steeljaw tells him that there is no need for him to fight anymore as he is safe among them. Rodimus doesn't believe it, and before he can form a thought, he loses consciousness. His thoughts drift back in time, when he was young and with his friends Strongarm and Gripper. Strongarm had been adamant about leaving Donnocht, but he and Gripper had pressed her to stay. She believed there was a better life for her out there somewhere and wanted to go begin again, but Rodimus had reminded her that a beginning for them meant an ending for way too many others. The memory fades just as soon as it comes as Steeljaw appears in Rodimus's line of view again. As Steeljaw calls him brother one more time, Rodimus angrily declares that he is no one's brother and he is the last of his kind, as he had helped destroy the others. Steeljaw insists he is their brother, and his actions in a previous life do not matter. As the last of the Cybertronians, they are like a family, like it or not. Rodimus recognizes Steeljaw as a Decepticon from his badge, but Steeljaw tells him that those labels no longer matter. He tells his name to them, Rodimus, but he is met with blank stares. Steeljaw says he is glad to meet Rodimus, but not getting the response he expected, Rodimus repeats his name. The blank stares do not change, and Rodimus tries to jog their memories by telling them that he went as Hot Rod and Rodimus Prime for a while. The bots start wondering what is wrong with the old bot. Rodimus, exasperated at the knowledge of the bots, begins naming famous Autobots like Optimus Prime and Thunderclash. They don't know any of the names though, but at the desperate attempts of Rodimus pretend to recognize the last name. Steeljaw explains that their memories had to be overwritten because of lack of fuel, and he should not worry about his place in history. Rodimus tells them to go extinct someplace else cause there's no Energon here. While Rodimus is the one expecting to shock them, he is the one who ends up shocked when Steeljaw tells them that they have taken on a new source of fuel as they no longer can find Energon anywhere. Biofuel. Steeljaw offers to install the new fuel receptors and show the conversion process using local resources as a token of their new bond, and tells him he will get dinner started. When Rodimus turns to Moon, he sees him holding the two things that are very precious to him, his friend Shib and his dusty cape. All for fuel. The chest that had the Energon keys had been passed from one generation to the other in Shib's family since the time humans lived in caves. They handed down the chest, the knowledge of the past, the secrets that must be kept, and the promise of rescue if they did their job well. Rodimus, thinking that Shib is going to be turned into biofuel, and unable to stop it because of his weakness, falls down on the ground and cries for forgiveness. One of the bots, Scylla, thinks he is pathetic and doesn't want to convert him as he doesn't even appreciate what they are doing for him. Wedge, the other bot, tells him that he is old-fashioned, and bots of his generation even formed bonds with humans before they realized how useful they are. Riot Gear thinks that's perverse and has more questions to ask. They wake up the veteran to answer them and hopefully talk some sense into Rodimus. Rodimus wonders who it could be and is thoroughly disappointed when he sees Wheelie, no longer talking in rhyme though, instead resorting to haikus. He confirms that Rodimus is a hero, and Sharpclaw tells him that she looks forward to having her culture enriched by their memories. Rodimus refuses to add anything to their parasitic lives and asks Wheelie if he doesn't think their time is up even after consuming mushed-up lifeforms for their survival. Wheelie thinks that the preservation of their lives and race is important. Rodimus asks him how someone fixed him but also made him worse, and Wheelie replies that new ways had to be found to keep him alive. A result of this was using haikus, a form of poetry from Earth. Rodimus reminds him that they blew up Earth. Steeljaw is not sympathetic about it and tells him that whatever culture is worth saving will live on with them. Rodimus refuses to let them convert people into biofuel, but they are at an impasse as Steeljaw reminds him that there is no more energon. They had stopped looking for it a long time ago. Steeljaw begs Rodimus to let them convert him. It is a great gift that Steeljaw is giving out of love, as it requires a lot of their own resources, and Steeljaw wants Rodimus to live longer and enjoy what the planet has to give. As an answer, Rodimus spits in Steeljaw's face. Steeljaw thinks it is just a waste of fluid and orders Wildwheel to find out whether Moon prepared the resource for making biofuel and adapt Rodimus into ingesting it whether he wants to or not. He also asks Wildwheel to prepare the husbandry paddocks for the new occupants, and then asks Sharpclaw to take point with him, while the rest are commanded to take the livestock carts and leave. Before leaving, Steeljaw explains that life as hunters was not sustainable, and they needed to become farmers too. Meanwhile, in Shib's house, the Rangers ransack their house while trying to find out what their family had been hiding. Their parents' photograph is thrown out and stepped on, but the two brothers are helpless against the alderman and his men. The alderman accuses them of never caring about Fembrance and placing them all in danger. Shib is still thankfully alive thanks to Moon's tendency of monologuing. Moon wonders why he is called odd-looking while creatures like Shib exist. Damn! Moon, this is why nobody likes you. Moon also wonders how Rodimus and Shib can be friends when their race is so much more sophisticated than the puny race of Shib. The bots carry Rodimus to where Moon is, and Rodimus is surprised to see Shib alive. Shib begs for a chance to say goodbye, and Wheelie asks them to let her as her life matters just like theirs. Funny you don't think that when they are turned into Soylent Green, Wheelie. Shib has a trick up her sleeve though, and as she goes near Rodimus to say goodbye, she sticks the Energon key in his chest. The Energon does its magic and Rodimus is restored to his former glory. His metal is shiny with the proud Autobot symbol on his chest, and his transformation has everyone's jaws on the floor. Moon wants to do that too, and Wheelie just says damn 5, 7, and 5 times. He throws away the rest of the bots, telling them that the kitchen's closed on carbon-based lifeforms. He destroys the vats they had set up to create biofuel, which enrages Wildwheel. He can't believe Rodimus would betray his own kind for a creature like Shib, and throws a broken exhaust pipe at Shib to kill her. Moon jumps in front of Shib and catches the pipe in his eye. He tells them that he gets Rodimus's point now. Rodimus kicks Wildwheel down and makes sure Shib is okay. Shib asks him if he is the good guy, which takes Rodimus aback. Surely you can read the room, Shib. Surely you are not that stupid. Wheelie asks the bots to contact Steeljaw and let him know that things have not gone according to plan. He then turns to Rodimus and accuses him of trying to dominate them with his arrogance, even when their numbers have dwindled. Rodimus tells him that he does not get to forget that he is an Autobot just because his badge was lost with the rest of his body. He tells him that he always needed to choose to do the right thing, something that good guys do, but he chose to kill for his own survival. Wheelie attacks Rodimus by biting his ankle, and Rodimus simply kicks him right out of the planet. He turns into a car and asks Shib to get in. As they go, he thanks Shib for knowing exactly what to do, and Shib reminds him that he had left back instructions with his family. Shib tells him that there are 2 more, and Rodimus tells her that they need to destroy them. It isn't the first task on the roster though, as the new bots have no way of sniffing out Energon, and even if they did, they would not know what to do with it. Shib asks if there are 3 keys because there used to be 3 of them. Rodimus gives her a quick lesson on his history. He had arrived on the planet with 2 of his friends, knowing there were no places to fight, no resources to fight with, and no one to fight against. Their plan was to live with the fuel they had and gradually fade away. As soon as he saw evolution take place, he decided to educate the people on what to do if more of them arrived. They did not want this planet to die like many others. Shortly after, Gripper had slipped and taken a terrible fall. They did not have enough resources to fix him, so they just had to watch him die. Strongarm snapped and wanted to find more of them, but Rodimus was against it. He tried to stop her by clipping her wings, but she fell to her death, and Rodimus, last bot standing, handed himself over to Shib's ancestors to be used as a wagon. Rodimus notices the bots following him and stops to battle them. He takes them all out easily. Some in their bot forms, some in their transport form. Nobody survives against his Energon-fueled rampage. The alderman who had been torturing Beats and Trayvon is interrupted by the arrival of Steeljaw and his bots. Steeljaw orders them to catch them all and sort them into bleeders and breeders later at the base. They begin chasing the people, taking great pleasure and joy in doing so. Suddenly, Steeljaw smells something and follows it to find Nitro's corpse. He asks how Riot Gear did not find him first, and Riot Gear tells him that his sensors are practically dead. Steeljaw thanks Nitro for everything and apologizes for not being able to save him. Riot Gear promises to avenge him once they catch the locals. Irked, Steeljaw tells him that it was clearly the work of Rodimus. Sharpclaw's sharp sense of smell takes her into Shib's house. As Trayvon sees the bots approaching, he asks the alderman to not let them destroy the house, but it's too late as Steeljaw claws away the roof and digs up the tiny chest with the Energon keys. Looks like Rodimus was wrong about their sensors. These siblings wonder what the keys do until they find a data screen, much like our tablets and iPads, and they turn it on. When Rodimus and Shib return to Fembrance, they are met with smoke and destruction. The bots welcome Rodimus, thinking he is replenished after a good meal, but then they notice Shib in his arm and wonder how he is so recharged. Before their question is answered, Steeljaw arrives with Sharpclaw. Sharpclaw has Shib's brothers, and Steeljaw accuses him of executing Nitro. Rodimus stands by his decision that none of them should have been on the planet, but Steeljaw thinks that he does not get to decide that. He tells Rodimus that they could have been brothers, but he has kept way too many secrets to be trusted. Last stand of an Autobot. The data screen flashes on and Rodimus appears. He tells them that he is recording the instructions to be remembered and passed on. He informs them about the Energon in their world and how disruption of just one section of the Energon network could set off a chain reaction that would blow up the world. He then warns them about visitors that look like them that might show up in a few days or years, and the keys to wake them from hibernation if they do. Steeljaw crushes the device and accuses Rodimus of being selfish. He tells him that all the planets they have erased and all the lives they have taken will be on his head, as Rodimus could have prevented it all by just telling them about the Energon. Rodimus tells him that they would have just erased this planet instead. Sharpclaw sees it as a way to build their civilization again by mining Energon. Steeljaw asks what happened to the rest of their bots, and Rodimus tells him that he happened. Riot Gear is surprised to see such effects of Energon and asks if it can really do that. Rodimus tells them it can do more than that with just a shot. Having been starved of Energon for so long, the bots lunge at Steeljaw for just one shot. Steeljaw steps back to avoid them and drops one of the keys. The bots, desperate for a taste, start licking the ground. While the bots are distracted, Rodimus asks Shib to free her people. Steeljaw complains about his fellow bots debasing themselves for Energon to Sharpclaw, but Sharpclaw is equally desperate. She asks him to share the key he still has and begins clawing at him. Rodimus helps Shib free all the people, and once they all run away is when the bots realize the resources had been freed. Their eyes then hover to Steeljaw's hand and the juicy Energon key, and they all jump to him. Rodimus gets to Steeljaw before any of them and kicks away the key. Shib catches it and rides away on one of her riding animals. What else can I call them? Horned horses? Horsey llamas? Anyway, Rodimus helps her run away by throwing the rich boy's steam ramblers at the chasing bots. The explosion knocks him down and he remembers the last time he had fought bots. It was when two Decepticons had found Donoct, but with the help of Gripper and Strongarm, Rodimus had taken them out. Gripper was not happy with what they had done, but Rodimus was adamant about saving this planet at least. Shib rides into one of the mining caves and hides just as Sharpclaw and Steeljaw arrive. They become completely dazzled by the Energon reservoir and they begin planning their life out on the planet. Suddenly, he hears a sound and turns to see Shib on one of the chains. He shoots the chains and she comes tumbling down. The blast causes a rumbling in the hills that wakes Rodimus up and he heads to find Shib. On his way, he is caught by Unstoppamus, a giant of a transformer. The disturbance makes Steeljaw further believe in the words of Rodimus that the core is very delicate and one wrong move would set off explosions on the other side. Sharpclaw picks Shib up and tells Steeljaw that though she is grateful for having him for a brother, proud of him for all he has done, and worthy of praise because of bringing their kind here, she also knows that she deserves some of the Energon too. Meanwhile, Rodimus muses that he did not know their species was running out of fuel but not names. Seriously, who names themselves or their kid Unstoppamus? Unstoppamus is anything but unstoppable, and Rodimus pulls his head out of his body easily and leaves him for dead. He heads to the hills to look for Shib, and as soon as he walks into the mining cave, Sharpclaw punches him so hard he begins bleeding fuel and drops down. Steeljaw could easily finish him off with his blasters, but he wants the personal touch and kicks him instead. Steeljaw tells him that he tried to protect some creatures over his own kind, and now Steeljaw would return to the base and turn them into mush. That causes Rodimus to laugh out loud, and Shib explains that he destroyed all their fuel conversion equipment. Enraged, Steeljaw punches Rodimus so hard his fist jams up his chest and he throws him into the Energon pit. He tells Rodimus that Steeljaw might be the one who would press the trigger to destroy the planet, but it is Rodimus who killed it. Sharpclaw tries to be hopeful and optimistic and asks her brother to return with her to the base to see if they can salvage anything, but Steeljaw has given up all hope. He tells her that it is over and all they can do now is die with honor, like Decepticons. Sharpclaw, having had a change of mind, asks Steeljaw to let the people live. Their lives have come to an end now, but that fate need not be shared by the planet and its inhabitants. Steeljaw does not see it that way, as he tells her that though he is not winning, he certainly will never lose, and aims his blaster at the pit. To stop him, Sharpclaw jumps in front of his blasters and gets shot. As she falls down lifeless, Shib criticizes him, telling him that Sharpclaw had his back till the very end, and all she got as a thank you was her death. Steeljaw grabs Shib, telling her that before her kind were food, they were sport for him, and though the long years have made him lose some memories, he still remembers what it feels like to end something between his fingers. Rodimus still has some fight left in him, and the Energon reserve recharges him in a way like never before. He looks like he is on fire as he flies up and tells Steeljaw that the holes in his body left by Steeljaw had been filled by the Energon, and now he had to fight with the strongest version of the Autobot. He demands to know what good is a Cybertronian if they cannot change. Steeljaw knows he cannot win, but he still wants Rodimus to lose, so he tries to grab Shib. But Rodimus shoots a blast at his head that obliterates Steeljaw. Rodimus then fixes up the holes and the flames slowly reduce. Shib sits next to Rodimus and the two make sure they are both okay. Shib tells him that he looked awesome on fire, like a god, and calls him Godimus. He tells her that he won't be showing up to work tomorrow, and though he doesn't like authority a lot, he thanks Shib for being the best boss he has ever had. Shib thinks that's a great compliment, as Rodimus is the oldest living thing in the universe, and Rodimus tells her that since he is the only living bot, he is also the youngest of his kind. Rodimus helps the people of Fembrance find out a way that makes the Energon rocks work for them, and stockpiles some for Shib. Rodimus also figured out a way to make the spacecraft of the bots work. When it was done, he boarded it with the remaining bots still in stasis and left Donoct for good. Back on land, Shib recalls her days with Rodimus fondly. It was short, scary, and exciting, and it had helped her find out about a good person who fought against his own people and past to undo what they had done. Rodimus always wanted to fill the sky up with stars, but he knew he couldn't. As Shiv looks up, she knows one of them is Rodimus and that he managed to put one star in the sky. For her, that is enough. I really loved this story because of the moral grayness of it all. Rooting for Rodimus meant you were rooting for the end of his kind, but it also was rooting for a noble cause. Even though Steeljaw was the villain of the series, I could empathize with him. He had led his people through numerous planets and galaxies looking for sustenance. He was starved and had the burden of looking after his entire species. That could not have been easy. It is a truly beautiful and sad tale, and the art just nails every scene into your heart. One tiny thing I did notice was that they didn't tell us what happened to the final Energon key. Did Sharpclaw and Steeljaw share it? Did they destroy it to make sure it didn't divide them? I guess it's up to interpretation. What did you think of Transformers Last Bot Standing? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like the video, tap on that thumbs up to let me know. Before you go, I have one more request. Subscribe to our channel and ring that bell icon, as that would really encourage us to keep making more awesome stuff for you. I will soon be back with videos you love, but until then, goodbye!